Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today we're doing a comparison or a showdown between these two knives to see which one I ultimately like better. And there is going to be a winner, so I'd invite you to participate down in the comments below. Let me know who you think the winner is going to be. I'd love to hear why as well, or if you own either one of these knives or both of them, I'd love to hear your comments and which one you would pick given, you know, the similar discussion that to what I'm having. I do want to point out something about price really quickly here, and that is, well, these are a bit different on brand new. So if you go to Blade HQ, I think this is like $325. There's also another model for $350, and you're going to find the ZT for $280 just about everywhere because that's ZT's map pricing. Well, that's true. On the secondary market, they're very, very close. You see both of these knives go for, you know, let's give myself a bit of a window here, but somewhere between $240 and $260, you'll regularly find these selling for those prices on the secondary market, which, you know, puts them pretty close together. You know, you could almost say they both go for around $250 on the secondary market. Perhaps this one goes a little bit cheaper. This one is more consistently around $250. But the point is very close on the secondary market. And if you're wondering about secondary market, I get a lot of questions about this. Blade Forums is great because of the way it vets sellers. Really, it vets everyone. There's the Knife Swap subreddit. There's USN, which I believe vets people pretty strictly as well. You know, whatever your favorite Facebook group happens to be, just again, always do your due diligence. Make sure you're getting what you're paying for, and that it's, you know, that the person is everything's on the up and up. Just take care, because there are some less than honorable people out there, and as sad as that may be in the knife community, it does happen. So let's carry on with the rest of our discussion, understanding that you can get both of these for, you know, in the ballpark of $250 on the secondary market. Moving on. Size and weight. The first thing that we always talk about is, you know, if I'm going to carry this thing, is it going to be too heavy? Is it going to be too annoying for me to carry around? And am I just going to sort of get tired of it? So beginning with the Reate, size here is fairly substantial at 8.5 inches, 3 5/8 on the blade, 4 15/16 on the handle, so just a hair under 5 inches. All right, 3 3/4 inch grip area. You can see there is a difference in grip here. So this has a more defined sort of end point to this choil. So it's, you know, you're really pretty clearly measuring in here, where on this there's not such a defined point. Okay, so 3 3/4 here, and weighs in at 5.9 ounces. All right, down here we have 8 1/4 inches, 3 1/2 inch blade, in fact more like 3 9/16, 4 7/8 on the handle. So these are within a 1/16 of an inch difference in the handle and the blade being a little shorter on the ZT, and the handle and blade both being just a teeny bit shorter, like a 1/16 of an inch shorter on the ZT. Closed length, I already mentioned, 4 7/8. Now, the grip area is a little more generous. So 3 7/8 grip area on the zero tolerance, which is, you know, pretty comfortable as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, both of these, even if you got pretty big hands, I think you're going to be fine. Now, the weight is the number that is a little more noticeable here. This guy weighs in at 5.4 ounces. So 5.9 ounces, 5.4 ounces. That's a bit more of a difference. And I will say, as you pick these up and handle them, and as you put these in your pocket, you can notice a difference, okay? You really can. And the fact is, the zero tolerance does carry less noticeably than the Reate. Okay, so it's a pretty easy win here. You know, and I tried this out before making this video in a couple of different pairs of pants. The minute you put this in these two in your pocket, you can right away tell the difference. This is a little less noticeable. Okay, so the zero tolerance is the clear winner in terms of size, weight, and carry. Let's go on then and talk about the blades on these two. Since we went with the Reate first, let's talk about the blade on the zero tolerance next. So we have 20 CV blade, satin flat, stone wash finish, drop point with a nice little swedge up here. reasonably thin behind the edge. Okay, this is, it's a fairly stout blade. This is not meant to be, the sliciest blade that's ever existed, but it's definitely good for zero tolerance. Okay, zero tolerance tends to have thicker blades and be a little thicker behind the edge. So this one is really, really well done. And of course, you'll all recognize that grind as the Hinderer slicer grind. Oh, I guess we should mention that it's 20 CV on the steel. Moving over here to the Reate, we have M390 steel. Again, satin finish, stonewash on the flats. However, all right, let's see if I can get these nice and close and get the camera to focus the way I want it to. All right, I think, there we go. There we go. So now I hope you can see the finish on the Reate and just the overall, even the grind lines, everything on the Reate is just a little bit nicer in terms of finishing. Now, carrying on with the rest of the discussion, similar blade stock. Let's see, I'll put those side by side. You can see very, very close in terms of that thickness. Obviously, we've got a bit of a harpoon swedge here. This is a clip point rather than a drop point. Again, though, very nice thin edge. Not the sliciest blade that's ever existed or anything like that, but definitely capable. As an EDC knife, I have zero complaints about either one of these. Okay, again, I don't really often use my EDC for slicing tomatoes or something, but both of these will actually do that if they need to. And so I've got to really say the steel is the same, okay, M390 and 20 CV. So, I really can't pick one. I've got to say the looks, okay, and the way they're finished, the Reate does pull ahead just a little bit. But overall, I've got to call this a tie. I actually like the looks of both of them quite a lot. And they're so close in terms of performance, in terms of finishes, everything like that, that I really can't give you a decisive winner on the blade. So I'm going to call that one a tie, even when you cut with them. And again, in preparation for this, I did some cutting side by side. They're just too close to call. All right, so let's move on to lockup and deployment. That's an area where there's definitely a little more of a noticeable difference. Okay, so what we have here on the Reate is double row ceramic bearings, a perfectly tuned detent, and I mean perfect. It just snaps. It's stiff enough that it's very snappy on deployment, but it's not so stiff that it's uncomfortable. Really, really well done. Zero tolerance, still pretty stiff. It does not drop shut quite as nicely as the Reate, and overall it just doesn't feel as smooth. The other thing is the Hinderer flipper tab here. We've often talked about this. It kind of hooks up in a weird way that I sort of wish it didn't. Not that I dislike it at all, but this one is pretty easy. The Reate, it feels like a completely different knife. If you just shut your eyes and you work the action on both knives. Now, I will give them both equal credit for doing a couple of great things here. Okay, the lock bar, very accessible on both of these knives. Okay, very solid. Again, both knives. Typical stuff, lock bar insert, all that kind of stuff we expect. Over travel stop, they're just done differently. So very, very close in terms of construction and in terms of operation, but in feel, in smoothness, in the level of sort of quality and just perfection, the Reate is clearly way ahead. All right, and frankly, the Reate has had action dialed in for some time now, and if you want a knife that is going to give you near perfect action, Reate achieves that quite often. Okay, to get this kind of feel, you're looking at a Koenig, you're looking at a custom knife factory, you're looking at other high-end production pieces, Shirogorov, and you're not touching that for 325. So the action on the Reate is just outstanding. It really, really is. And that's one of the nicest things about them. And if you're one of those people who's always wondered, you know, what do those really expensive knives feel like? If you buy a Reate, especially one that has dual row ceramic bearings, you'll know. Okay, you know, there's some slight differences, you know, when you get into Shiros and some others, there may be some that are a hair better or just feel a little bit smoother, but it's so close that it's almost indiscernible, the difference. Okay, so if you just want that experience, if what you're looking for is just an amazing action, the Reate is going to deliver that. And ZT, although it's nice, it does not get close to what Reate can do. All right, let's move on now to the handle. All right, exceptionally well built. I love this handle. I love the large decorative pivot. I love the blue anodized screws. I love the touch of color here at the back. I love the pocket clip with the ceramic ball. The lanyard hole is about the only thing that I could sort of take or leave. It's milled internally, you know, and then the lines here that are left are fantastic. I find it just gives a nearly perfect balance of traction and comfort. It's really, really, really good. Okay, moving over to the zero tolerance, it's definitely a little plainer. I'm not in love with the black hardware, but and the clip is functional, but certainly not anything as cool as the milled titanium clip on the Reate. Okay, however, when you get the zero tolerance in hand, it feels amazing. It really, really does do a great job. It just feeling like it was meant to be in a human hand. Okay, so how am I going to call this one? Well, ergonomically, the ZT is a little bit better. In terms of looks and class and fit and finish, this is a little subjective, but I'm going to say the Reate is quite a bit better. So, you know, somewhere in between those two. All right, so I'm going to call it the ZT wins just for feel. The Reate wins for, you know, fit and finish, attention to detail, you know, just all that kind of really fine, refined. You know, I just find the Reate to be almost the perfect combination of just, you know, it's just dressed up enough to make it really classy and really interesting without going over the top. Okay, so that's how I'm going to call that. Reate on what I'm going to call looks and maybe fit and finish. ZT on just feel in hand. Okay, so that's sort of both winners, and I know I've created a whole new category there when I was just supposed to talk about the handle, but that's honestly, you know, how I feel about it, and I think that's a good enough description that it gives you the ability to make a decision for yourself. All right, so overall, at the end of the day, which one? Now let me share one little secret with you guys. You know, you could make some changes to the ZT, and the one change I am thinking about making, because, you know, partially for my own curiosity, so I could share it with you guys, there are dual row ceramic bearings available for ZTs. I'm not sure, they're not available for every model, but they are available for the 0562, and I've really been toying with the idea of buying a pair and seeing how they work in here. And that may be, you know, the thing that kind of makes the difference, right? Because one of the standout areas that the Reate killed it was in terms of just the action and the smoothness of that action. So overall, I've got to say, if I could only keep one of these, or I could only recommend one of them, you know, if you called me or emailed me and said, look, Kevin, I'm really hung up on picking one of these, I just can't decide, I would go with the Reate every single time. And the reason is it's just a little higher. It's a tier up from the ZT in terms of fit and finish, in terms of smoothness, in terms of the overall aesthetic of the knife, even in terms of small details like, and I should have touched on this, but here's a good example of the kind of detail I'm thinking of. Notice how the Reate has this little wall as part of the relief cut and makes it just a little more robust than the ZT. It's a very small detail, but Reate just pays a little more attention. You know, the anodization, the little flourishes of detail on the Reate are there, and they're just not there on the ZT. Now I know you can switch this out, and I've considered, and I still may switch out the hardware on this and go with blue or bronze, and I may switch out the pivot as well. But then keep in mind that puts this in quite a different, you know, it's going to be over $100 for hardware. It's going to be another 50 bucks or so for the pivot. Well, now, you know, you've got a $400 knife, and you know, you're into a whole different ball of wax. Okay, so for me, the clear winner is going to be the Reate. I really, really do enjoy it. I enjoy both of these though. The ZT is not going anywhere. I'm not interested in getting rid of it in my collection, and I've got a couple of other comparisons I want to do, and a couple that you guys have requested. So keep watching, and I'll make sure that I get to those. But for now, in terms of the Reate versus the zero tolerance, I'm going with the Reate all the way. By the way, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, use the links down in the description box below. That definitely helps the channel. I think the best bet for picking up both of these is going to be DLT trading. So I'll put a link to DLT down below. The other two, you know, my other channel partners get a lot of love, so DLT tends to get overlooked. And so I'll put them down in the link from the description box, because I just feel like it's the safest bet in terms of where you can probably find these guys in stock. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.